everyone, we're here with Sue, our state librarian at the Pennsylvania State Library, or I think it's actually the State Library of Pennsylvania.
Correct, that's right, because people mix it up with Penn State if you call it the Pennsylvania State Library.
And we definitely don't want to do that. We're right here in the middle of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the capital, in the beautifully restored building. Tell me a little about the restoration.
Absolutely. The State Library is part of the Forum Building, which has 4 floors of offices, or 5 floors of offices, and the whole first floor is the State Library operations. So this is our main reading room, and then all the way across the building, on the other end of the building, is the Law Library, which is not open to the public, but the main reading room is now. The building itself was opened in 1931, so it has, and it was designed, and the artistic aspects of the interior were designed by some of the most noted artists of the Art Deco era. So you see a lot of design and imagery and color and gold leaf and brass and silver, all of which was really common in Art Deco architecture and art during the time. It started in 1928, and in order to build out the Capitol campus and create the Forum Building first, and then the building across the Grove and the Grove itself that leads up to the State Street Bridge. They raised the 8th Ward, which was a primarily African American community, but it was also where most of the immigrant populations stopped first. So they decided to sort of clear that out and sort of found places, displaced the populations that were there to build these buildings to enlarge the operations of state government. Which I like to keep that in mind as we moved back in after being out for 3 years. The library operations, the State Library and Library Development, which is the other bureau of the Office of Commonwealth Libraries. So we have the public services of the State Library and the collections of the State Library, and we also serve and fund public libraries across the Commonwealth, and that's what library development does. When we moved out in 2019 and joined the rest of the Department of Education, which this building was built to house the Department of Public Instruction, as it was called at the time. And they left in like the 70s and 80s, the rest of PDE, of the Pennsylvania Department of Education, and went over to 333 Market, and we stayed because this is our library space. And we left in 2019, and we just returned earlier this year. We moved back into the offices a little bit later in the late fall of 2023. And then we reopened the library in January of 2024, a soft opening, and we had a grand reopening in April of 2024. And the work that was redone as part of the restoration, they focused really closely on the artistic restoration of the State Library spaces, which were by far the most elaborate and most beautiful. The rest of the building was brought up to snuff to serve modern business purposes. So it's kind of more cubicles, and the infrastructure was replaced. This was all heated back in the day, actually up until 2019, was heated through radiators, no air conditioning. And then the air conditioning that they did have were big window air conditioners, which you could see if you look over at the Revenue Building, which is across the way. You still see that they still have window air conditioners. I don't miss that. that's for sure. Because I came in 2018, so I spent a little time in this building first before we moved everybody over to 333 Market, and the state library operations itself moved over to the Keystone building for that short time, and we just took a very minimal amount of materials. We have about 4 million items in the library itself as it stands right now. Much of it had, or not, actually it wasn't even much of it. It was a minority of the collection had to leave the building in order to make way for the restoration and the redo of the infrastructure. So they put in HVAC systems, they put in new electrical and new plumbing and everything else. So in order to do that work, and because a lot of the collection is under the street level, they had to take a lot of that out so that the new equipment could come in. That was really complicated. And probably around 25 semi-trucks full of library materials were taken off-site and stored elsewhere in dark storage in New York State and in some facilities that were owned by the Turnpike Commission, I think, or PennDOT. One of the, they have the big spaces. So some of our stuff went there, some of our stuff went to New York, and it all came back for 2 weeks of semi-trailers coming back and bringing back all the materials and putting them back. Everything had to be cleaned, everything had to be reorganized. So our folks were really busy for a few months when everything started to come back. It's a complicated thing to move a library of any size anywhere, but one like this with a lot of special collections, there's a lot of, and the microfilm alone, the floors had to be reinforced, and they're in new shelving units that scoot together, compact shelving, and they're on tracks. All of that had to be put in, and it has to withstand the weight. Microfilm is really heavy, so it was not a small thing. And while we were gone during 2019 to 2023, it's really 4 years, and with the pandemic in there mixed in, which made things even more complicated. But luckily, the work of the artistic restoration was all done during that time. So it was actually kind of a good thing that there were just a few people in the building when they couldn't have a lot of folks working simultaneously because of the pandemic. The artists could be working and the artisans. So they built scaffolding that filled the entire volume of the main reading room, which you took some pictures of before. It's really tall. It's 4 stories high. And everybody walked up to the top and stood and repainted the entire ceiling to using the original materials and reproducing the original look of the ceiling. And the best part is that because of what we have available to us in modern technology now, particularly in lighting, we can actually see everything now with new LED lights. And it's never going to be in the same kind of danger that it was from the minute it went in the 1920s, the late 1920s, where people smoked and there was no, the windows were open all the time. There was coal heating, so everything got covered. Besides that, there was a big fire in the Forum Auditorium that happened just before the building was supposed to open. So it was supposed to open in 1930, and it ended up opening in 1931 because of the fire. And the fire was because it was paint and like oily things that caught fire because of what they were doing to the ceiling of the Forum Auditorium, which is another beautiful, amazing thing. But the people who were working on it weren't as careful as they needed to be, and the rags caught on fire, and the oily smoke filled the entire building. And you can see that when they took the lighting fixtures off the walls, you can see the soot from the original fire from 1930 behind all of the lighting fixtures. So all of that had to be cleaned up.
That is amazing,
Yeah.
Sue. Thanks for that. I feel like you hit every point on the when of the history of the State Library of Pennsylvania. So let me move on with all that knowledge. And, we're sitting in this beautiful room, so I can attest the restoration was phenomenally done. But who is the State Library for?
That's a great question. It's for everyone, is the short answer. The focused service, and one of the reasons that the State Library was created, and actually the State Library was created in 1745 to serve the Pennsylvania, the Assembly. So the British subjects at that time, who were governing the colony of Pennsylvania, the state assembly in Philadelphia had a clerk that they charged to develop a collection of British statutes and maps so that they could make laws specific to Pennsylvania and know where the stuff was. And that clerk, named Benjamin Franklin, purchased the original collection, much of which we still have, and that's part of our special collections in our rare book room downstairs. So that was the beginning of the State Library, specifically for the Assembly. Subsequent to that, in every time the government of Pennsylvania changed, the State Library changed as well. But it was always there to serve state government. That was what it was created for first, and what we continue to do so. So we serve state government and state government employees. So we serve the legislature, but they also have their own Senate and House libraries now as well. But we serve the staff of the legislature, and we are part of the governor's executive branch as part of the Department of Education. So we serve state employees, but we also have a responsibility and statutory responsibility to serve the people of Pennsylvania. So that's really who always has access to all of our resources, both our physical spaces, our print resources, which we lend out in interlibrary loan, so you can get almost anything, with the exception of some rare things, are lent through interlibrary loan to anyone at their libraries if they request it.
So
you can also come here.
I'm sure the government entities and workers, employees, know how to utilize the library. What if you're part of the general public? How do you utilize the services here?
Good question. You can request a card online, and you can stop by and get a card for the State Library, which I have one. Actually, mine is right here. I carry it with me so that I can use it online. And what really is great about, and it's also a very cool library card. Oh, there it is. It's 3D.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah, and this gets you access to all of our electronic resources as well. So it's a great, and those are a great place to start. We subscribe to a number of aggregated databases of information and print resources that aren't available anywhere, including things like Hein Online, which gives you access to state, local, and federal level, and I think international law with no restrictions. So you can get anything. You can also use all of the librarian support through, actually you can do that even if you don't have a state library card, through Ask a Librarian, through Power Library. Our librarians work the Ask a Librarian interface, just like all the other librarians in the state.
What a great service and multiple services to offer.
Yeah.
So now that we know how to come here and get our card or get it online for anyone who wants to do it from the convenience of their couch or their work office when they're supposed to be working. So we have
It's
our
helpful
card.
for work.
We
That's
have
the
our
best
card and
Mhm.
we're coming here. What categories can we expect to find? What
We
topics?
specialize in local history and genealogy for all of Pennsylvania, but also states across the U.S., particularly the Eastern Seaboard. We have local history and genealogy for all of those. A lot of family histories. We also have our rare books, which are definitely a good reason to make a special trip in. You do have to make an appointment to see those, naturally. They're rare and expensive, but we have a whole staff of specialized librarians and library assistants to help with anyone who would like to see those rare items that go all the way back to before the New World was discovered.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I remember from before you mentioned some of the private collection. Is there something else that only the State Library of Pennsylvania has?
Pennsylvania newspapers. That's probably the one thing that everybody uses the most. We have all of the newspapers that are printed in Pennsylvania, no matter how small. And there's a lot of specialty ones for specific ethnic groups in a variety of communities around the Commonwealth. And we have both the current issues of all of those. We get them delivered right here every single day. And once they become digitized, we hold the digital copies as well. So you can go all the way back. And you can see in the catalog, which is available to anyone to look at, you can see which specific issues we have. We are missing some a little bit, and we keep trying to rebuild, but everyone is really in that boat. The further back you go, once you get into the 40s and the 30s and the 20s, it gets a little spotty because that predates the sort of official digitization efforts of any publisher. So it really is about who has had the time to find a paper version and digitize it. So not everything's available. Not everything's available in digital format. Some things are still only available in print.
That is really amazing. So if I need that, where can I find the State Library of Pennsylvania?
Online you can find us at statelibrary.pa.gov. And if you want to come visit us, which we definitely encourage, we are open Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, open to the public beginning at 10 a.m. And beginning in August, we'll be open every day until 6. Right now, we're open Tuesday until 4, Wednesday until 8 p.m., and then Thursday until 4. But we're going to move to 10 to 6 all 3 days. And then on the off days, our librarians are staffing the online interfaces. So you can get us any day of the week. But you can come visit us in person at the Forum Building at 607 South Drive in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Right in the heart of the Capitol complex.
That's right.
So if you're a night owl and you need that information from the library after 6 p.m., come now. We're recording this in June of 2024. And then in the future, starting in August, you'll have to come between the hours of 10 and 6.
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. We are recording in June 2024, which is Pride Month. Is there anything that the library is doing for that?
Yes, we have a really wonderful display provided to us by the LGBTQ Center here in Harrisburg, specifically about the emergence of LGBTQ interests and organizations on college campuses across the Commonwealth. It's a very nice display, and it will be here through the Harrisburg Pride, which will be at the end of July. Actually, I think we're keeping it through August. But we are going to be part of Harrisburg Pride. We'll have a booth out in front, and the library itself and the first floor of the forum building will be a cooling station and bathrooms. So we'll be here showing up for Pride.
A much needed respite from the hot Pennsylvania
very
July
hot.
weather when we have our Pride Festival. So Sue, thank you so much. I appreciate all the information. If there was one final thought you wanted to leave with the listeners about the library or the education system, what would that be?
Take advantage of what you've got, of what you have access to, online and in person. And more than anything, see if you can get here to really experience what we hold and share in person. And the beautiful surroundings that you can stay in all day if you want. It's yours to use and yours to consume, yours to take advantage of.
Well, right from the state librarian's mouth, you heard it here. Thanks so much, Sue.
Thanks, Mikey.